Good day. Hey, in a few slides, my tie is suddenly going to change. I had to re-record the first few slides because for some reason the recording software decided that it was going to stop recording. So I want to talk about difficult cases today, and difficult cases run the gamut. It can be a case where you can't figure out what's going on with the child. It could be a case where you've got divorced parents and one of them is refusing to participate in the evaluation. It could be a case where the kid doesn't qualify and he or she is still struggling in school. So what are you going to do? What services do they need? But for today, we're primarily going to focus on those difficult cases where the parent is disagreeing with the outcome of the psychoed or the IEP team agreement. The parent has enlisted the help of an advocate or a parent friend, or as they're sometimes called, a non-attorney representative or an attorney. And those are truly your most difficult cases. So let's stick to the sort of the legal side of the difficult cases as we go forward. Definition. Okay, well, like we talked about with divorced parents, when they disagree on qualifications, typically what you get is one parent pushing for the IEP, filling out all the paperwork, the other parent saying, no, my child is not special education, I'm not going to fill out anything. And then they both show up to the meeting. And because your psychoeducational report does not have input from both, it's really not legally compliant. It might be legally compliant, but it's definitely not legally defensible. And so one of the parents will challenge your psychoeducational report. And at the very least, you're going to end up with an IEE, an independent educational evaluation, which we're going to go into depth here in a few minutes. Not finding a clear qualification is definitely a problem. When an SST team has sent a student your way, they did so for a reason. Now, just because they're not meeting one of the criteria under SLD doesn't mean that you shouldn't look into OHI, autism, emotionally disturbed. And remember, the emotionally disturbed category has 5 subcategories, and it's not always just behavior. So refresh yourself with those. Also remember the cognitive abilities of, under the SLD qualification, the specific learning disability qualifications, the cognitive ability of perception, of association, and the others. Those are very rarely used and rarely understood. We'll do a presentation on them here in a little while, but they're usually not challenged either if you need to use one of them to get a kid the services he or she needs. The typical aggressive attorney or advocate definitely makes for a difficult case. They don't have to be aggressive or they don't have to be aggressive, but they do have to show the parent that they're earning their pay, because most school districts do not pay for advocates, and the attorney gets paid only on the percentage of the complaints that they win. So it does come out to be an aggressive relationship sometimes. A parental lawsuit filed with the Office of Administrative Hearing in California, that's one thing. And that's rough. That will make a difficult case. The worst case scenario is when they file with OCR, the Office of Civil Rights, because now they're saying you're violating their rights under ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act. And if OCR gets involved, it's a long, drawn-out process. You're usually looking at a 5-year micromanaging type of situation from OCR. I mean, every time you qualify a kid, say under OHI, and let's just say the kid is Hispanic, well, OCR is going to step in and take a look at the percentage of kids in your district that are Hispanic, the percentage of kids in your district qualified under OHI that are Hispanic, and if the numbers aren't proportional, you've got a problem, and they're going to challenge your qualification of that child. OCR can be quite a learning opportunity for an entire district. Okay, probably the best way to handle difficult cases is to not get involved with them, to prevent them. So the first thing we're going to do is go through a couple of prevention techniques. Number one, SST referrals are made for a reason. Don't dismiss these just because you can't find how our kid qualifies and you want to go with a D and Q. That's fine. But that D and Q psychoeducational report should be one of the most difficult ones you write. And don't, whatever you do, don't get on board with teachers or principals and label the kid as lazy or unmotivated. Now, on the surface, that might be true, but there's a reason for that. Are they too far down the Maslow scale at home where the parent's not involved and they're having to raise their siblings? Are they just so lost that they're not getting it? Are they competing with very bright older siblings who have always achieved without effort? And they can't match that, so they've given up. If you're going to talk about laziness or unmotivation, don't use those terms. Describe the behavior. So instead of saying that Johnny is lazy, say that when Johnny comes into his English class, he is not prepared. He does not bring a pencil, paper. He puts his head down on his desk. He will not listen to the lecture. He will not engage in the classroom. He seems to have no desire to develop his reading comprehension skills, as evident by the fact that no homework is completed and classwork is really difficult to get out of Johnny. You see how you're describing the principles commonly associated with laziness or unmotivation, but you're not labeling them, and that's a huge difference. Describing the behavior is okay, labeling it, not okay. Access in all areas of disabilities. Now, the actual law says that we assess in all areas of suspected disability, but that threshold for suspecting is very low. Okay, you could give the CAS and the student scores an 88 on the attention profile section. That's just inside the below average range. Now, I have another presentation where I justify using 90 to 110 as average. I know a lot of districts go 85 to 115. That's not correct. So 88 is just inside that below average range. You might say, you know, we got that's so close, I'm not even going to look at attention processing as a possibility. He might have just been having a bad day. But an attorney will jump on that. A teacher comment, just out of the blue, that you have in your report says that Johnny appears to be distracted in class. Now you're looking at assessing for ADHD, assessing for attention processing, and we're going to talk about the difference in a little bit. Assessing for OHI, other health impaired. This idea that to qualify under other health impaired, you must have a medical note or diagnosis is incorrect. IDEA requires us to assess in all areas of suspected disability as outlined in IDEA, and so it also authorizes us to assess in those areas. Not to make medical diagnoses, no. Not even to make DSM-5 diagnoses, no. But we can definitely report behaviors consistent with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. That would be consistent with our mandate. What we can't do is say that Johnny is showing these behaviors, document it, and then say, but he has no diagnosis, so we can't qualify him. That is indefensible. Okay. Prevention also includes communication. Communicating with the parent, the teachers, the principals, everybody, making sure everybody's on the same side, making sure that the principal and the teachers know how to describe behavior instead of labeling it, making sure that they know how to communicate with the parent and that they are regularly doing so. For initials, remember, and we talked about this a couple times, but I cannot stress it enough, the student demonstrated a need. I've seen a lot of student study teams refer students for special education assessments, and sometimes the referrals are not that great. But I tell you, the SST teams used all the tools they had. Now, they may not have had a lot of tools. They may not have been as well trained as I would have liked, but they did not refer the student just to see me do another assessment. They had a reason. The home environment. The home environment cannot rule out qualification. What do we mean by that? First of all, remember, when it comes to home environment and attendance, you're only looking at that affecting qualification under specific learning disability. It does not directly affect qualifications under other health impaired or emotionally disturbed or intellectual disability or autism, right? The common areas we're assessing for. So let's say you have a clear auditory processing disability, but at home, Jill gets no support for education. Homework is not stressed or even encouraged. The family likes to go out on these outings and these all-terrain vehicle trips to the desert like every afternoon, and there's no time to do homework because everybody's having too much fun. That does not rule out the impact of the auditory processing on Jill's academic progress. Homework these days is becoming having less and less of an impact on grades anyway. So yeah, the home environment might not be what you want, but once you have found a disability, a processing deficit, then home environment carries a lot less weight. All right, I'm going to go switch ties real quick. Thank you. Let's get it restarted. I'll have to patch these together. Okay. Attendance. Okay. Don't hang your hat on poor attendance as the reason a child does not qualify. You're going to want to rule out poor attendance as the major factor. And about the only way you can do that is to ask the parent to get the child to school every day for a couple of months and see if the grades improve. Now, if you can't do that, you do not have the research to say that the delay is due to poor attendance. And remember, attendance and home environment only affects qualification under specific learning disability. It does not impact any of the other 12 qualifying categories. So if you're looking at ED or OHI, you can pull up attendance, and you should put it in your report, but it is not a qualification to rule out. It would not prevent qualifying. Triennial. In order to keep your triennials intact and to make your triennials, legally compliant, know what standard score growth looks like and know how to explain it to the parent and advocates. Occasionally they need reminding. So if Johnny had a standard score, let's say you gave him a full scale IQ of 95, and let's say they had let's do academics. Let's say they had a reading comprehension standard score of 95 3 years ago, and during your triennial they have a reading comprehension standard score of 95. A parent or an advocate might claim that they're making no growth because the score has stayed the same. And they will do this. They'll misunderstand standard scores. You know that a 95 3 years ago under reading comprehension was much easier to get than it is 3 years later. So the same standard score between two triennials means the child has made 3 years worth of growth over 3 years. That's perfect. That's what you want to see. Make sure the parents understand that. And you almost have to point it out at every triennial meeting, because the parents going to go home and look at those standard scores and pull up that old psychoed and say, my son's not making any growth at all. My daughter's not making any growth. A standard score that of reading on a reading comprehension test of 95 3 years ago, and now they're getting a 91. That doesn't show that they're not learning. They learned at almost They learned almost 3 years worth of growth over 3 years. That's what they made, almost. But they have a disability. They have a processing disability. They have whatever, attention deficit. We wouldn't really expect them to maintain that same standard score 3 years later, unless our interventions are just spot on and perfect, and they were right to begin with. You don't want a significant fall. You may see a significant growth, and if you do see a significant drop in standard scores, you're going to want to do a few more testing, a few more assessments to figure out why and what's going on. You're going to want to revise the services and the accommodations because something's not working. Consider all prior assessments. If you're going into what you know is a difficult case, guys, you've got to look at every IEP, every addendum, every report card, every psychoeducational report, any documents that the attorney and the parent may get their hands on. Because they're going to look at all of it. And in my book, I talk about, and it's easier to do this than you may think. Okay, first of all, if an attorney or an advocate becomes involved, the first thing that they're going to do is a records request. A records request means that the district has about 5 days, it has 5 days, to send the attorney or the advocate every page from the student's CUME folder, from the special ed folder, anything with the student's name on it that's being kept in a place of records.
Is that 5 calendar days or 5 business days?
It's 5 calendar days. When we talk about, and that's a good question, when we talk about calendar days, there's only one time calendar days are used in special education law. Does anybody know what time that is? The 10 days for the manifestation determination is, did I say that right? The 10 days for manifestation determination says 10 school days. That's the only place school days is used in IDEA. So every other timeline is calendar days. Districts have 5 calendar days to respond to the parent's request for documents. Now, I take all those records if I know I've got a difficult case, and I'll scan them in. You can today copiers will do this. Now, your copier is going to be set to scan in at about 200 dots per inch. You want to up that to about 400. Makes the file a little bit larger, but then when you get it, you can run OCR on it, optical character recognition. And I just upload it to Adobe Acrobat, run optical character recognition, then I can search the document for keywords. And what I'm searching is their CUME and their special ed folder, everything, all the report cards, everything. Now I'll do this as an IEE on cases. If I've got a kid, I'm trying to make a case for ED, I'm going to look for behavior. I'm going to look for the word fighting. I'm going to look for just any keywords throughout all these documents. And it's amazing how quickly and how much data you can find doing that. And then that's just supporting evidence that overwhelms any opposition in the IEP team. All right, for triennials, you also want to consider grades. Grades are as important a part of academic progress as anything else. Because the law says the child must make educational progress and that we must consider the impact of the disability on education, not academics. So academics is a part of education, but academics is not the whole of education. Education includes that social emotional growth piece. It includes the preparation for getting out into the workplace. A kid who's not doing their homework, who's getting F's, is not ready to go into the workplace. So they're not ready to exit. And most of the time on a triannual, most of the time, your problems are going to be when you want to exit a kid. And I'm not saying don't exit them. No, I've exited plenty of kids, but you got to make sure the whole team's supporting you on this. Taking away special education services, no matter how good the try looks, is not a hill most districts want to die on. So they're going to just continue services. The best way to do this, if you know a kid probably does not need services anymore, they're doing really well, is to start a fading program. And at the end, you start attending every annual. And at every annual, you reduce services until you're just really doing a consultation between the SAI teachers and the teacher, the SAI teacher and the parents. And you're letting the parents see the child sort of pick themselves up and move on without support.